Hey everyone, Steve Siebold back with the Mental Toughness podcast. Brought to you by our sponsor today is Mental Toughness University. If you work for an organization or you run a company or a large sales team or a sales team really of any kind, you want to look at mental toughness training to increase sales and increase market share. We've been doing that with that program, Mental Toughness University, for almost 25 years. And we've done it with athletes. We've done it with major companies, had huge successes. We specialize in turnarounds of low-performing teams to turn them into high-performing teams. So if you're interested in that, work for an organization, or if you have an organization, go to Mental Toughness U, the letter U, mentaltoughnessu.com, and see some of our testimonials from clients like Coca-Cola and Johnson & Johnson and Volvo, and it goes on and on from there. Okay, so today on this episode, I want to talk about the concept of dreaming. The idea of, should you have things like a vision board? You know, from a psychological standpoint, does it make a difference when it comes to high performance? Like having vision boards, having a vision, a written vision, you know, having a business plan with bold projections. Do these things really make a difference? Because some people say no. Some people say, no, you should just go along, take things as they come, and you don't really need future orientation. You don't really need to be dreaming big. And I say that's completely wrong. I would do everything. I would do the vision boards. I still do them. I would do a vision, a written vision of your emotional future, what you see 5 years in the future, as if everything went exactly the way you wanted it to go in the next 5 years. What would you be living like? What would you be doing? Who would you be doing it with? Where would you be doing it, etc.? And just project these things, because it becomes a test drive, if you will, of your future. Now, most people won't do it, but if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a very ambitious person. Or you're someone that wants to learn more about the psychological reasons people succeed versus most people failing at things, not getting what they want. Okay, now I do want to contrast dreaming and planning with magical thinking. Okay, so magical thinking is I get on here and I tell you, I say to myself even, you know, I'm going to play center for the Atlanta Hawks. I live outside of Atlanta. And so I'm going to play center for the Atlanta, because I can play basketball. I have a basketball net. I've had basketball nets my whole life as a kid, and, you know, growing up, and the whole thing, and in a pool and all that kind of stuff. I used to have an NBA net right in our pool on Lake Lanier up a little north of here. And it was just a phenomenal glass backboard, whole thing. I was pretty good pool basketball player when I was just, you know, playing, you know, just by myself. I was pretty good, but a couple drinks even helped. But the Atlanta Hawks are not going to hire me to play for them. It's not going to happen. That's magical thinking. It's a fantasy. And there's a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm going to become a billionaire." What's the most amount of money you ever made? Well, I made $50,000 in a year, and I'm going to become a billionaire. That's probably not going to happen. Okay, get in reality. Now, I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm saying most likely you are wasting your thoughts, your mental energy, projecting something so far in advance of your or so far above your skill set or your experience that it's just a waste. You know what? Become a millionaire first, and then tell me you're going to become a billionaire. Make $100 million, and then tell me you're going to be a billionaire. Then it's a different story. Why not take one step at a time? Dreaming is different than magical thinking. Magical thinking is what most people do, and a lot of entrepreneurs do it because they come up to me in book signings all the time around the world. They have for almost 24 years, whatever it is. They've come up to me and said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. You know what? Take step one first. Dream, but dream big, but dream it with some sense of reality. Okay, some sense that you have a chance, that you could build a case, that there's some hope of this happening. Otherwise, you're just fantasizing. And that's fine, but it doesn't help you as a performer. That's not mental toughness. That's mental sloppiness. It's mental weakness is what it is. Because it's easy for me to say, well, I'm just going to do all these great things, blah, 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 blah. No, I'd rather have you dreaming about things where you have a projected path to success. That's mental toughness. That's when you're in the game. Okay, now you've got to fight for it. Now you've got to take action steps toward it every single day. And again, it can be anything. It could be with money. It could be with relationships. It could be with life, just in general. You know, how do you want to live? I mean, I remember years ago projecting, on vision boards, I wanted to always live on an estate. I always thought that was really cool. A lot of my young tennis friends growing up on the national junior tennis circuit were rich kids. I was not a rich kid, but they were, a lot of them. And they had tennis courts in their backyards. They lived on estates, and I thought, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And then I saw shows like Dynasty and, those kinds of shows back then in the late 70s and early 80s were very flashy shows of rich people. And I thought, that's so cool. I want to build a tennis court in my backyard, and I want to have a pool in my backyard, a lap pool, and this and that and the other thing. And, you start to think of ways to be able to do those things and how to gravitate toward that until one day I did. And it's not anything that was some fantasy. We had a plan. My wife and I had a plan to do these things, just like every other person that ends up where they want to be. It's one thing to end up somewhere, but it's another thing when you've orchestrated it. And that's what I'm talking about is orchestration, is big thinking. Okay, if you want to think big, whatever that means to you, big is relative, obviously, but big thinking, but orchestrated big thinking, not magical fantasizing. I'm not talking about that. Okay, that's really almost worthless. And that's what people do because there's no way to hold themselves accountable to it. Oh, I'm going to be a multi-billionaire. I'm a rich person in the world. I'm going to play, quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to do this. It's not going to happen. They're not going to hire me. I'm too old. I'm too slow. I can't throw enough, well enough, all those things. Right. But if I say, okay, my next book is going to do this much in sales. I'm going to do this much in revenue. You say, well, I'm going to have a great relationship. I'm going to raise great kids. And here's how I'm going to do it. You've got a vision, you've got a vision board, and you also have an action plan. You have a business plan. All right. You've got something to back it up. Now, I know some people are thinking, like my late friend Bob Proctor would say, he said, Steve, and he told me this for years, and I get where he was coming from. He said, hey, you gotta think about what you want, not how to get it. If you get how in the way, well, then it slows the why down. Why you want, what you want, and why you want. Just don't think about how, because that's another process. Okay. I get that. I'll bite into that. Okay. You can dream. I'm not saying don't dream. I'm not saying don't push the envelope, because certainly God knows I have. Okay. And I know a lot of other people have pushed it way beyond me, that are far more ambitious than I've ever been. And it just depends on your personality and what you want. But I'm not saying don't push it. Just have some orchestration where you could make a case for it to say, okay, this and this and this and this and this would have to happen. Okay, but if those things did add up, and I've got a sense that I could somehow learn how to put those things together, I have a shot. I have a legitimate shot. Maybe it's a long shot. That's okay. But the difference between a long shot and pure fantasy is that there's a big gap between those things. Okay, and the reason I'm saying all this is because you want to end up, obviously, the goal of life and business and sports and all that is to end up with what you want. Because I know a lot of people that have a lot of things, a lot of accomplishments. You can name it pretty much in any area of life, and they're not happy with what they have because they didn't want it, because they didn't orchestrate it. They weren't future oriented. They just kept driving, and all of a sudden they drove themselves to a point where they've got a big multi-million-dollar business, but their kids won't talk to them because they were never at home. They don't know their dad. They don't know their mom. Or they spend so much time, at home playing with the kids and, being a family person that they don't make any money, and they struggle with money, and the kids are stressed out and the family's stressed out and they can't pay their bills. You can relate it to just about anything. But the bottom line is you don't want to be in that category. What you want to do is you want to orchestrate. So dream big. Let the fantasizing go. Let most people do that. Dream big and then orchestrate your future so you get what you want at the end of the day. Someone asked me the other day on a radio show, they said, what is exactly that you want? You're 57 years old, at this point in your life. What exactly? You've done these things. You've got a lot of things and a lot of successes. What is it that you want? And I said, I want exactly what I have. I'm not saying I don't want to go forward, but I'm living the life I dreamed of and my wife and I put together. And I'm not bragging about it. I'm just saying, he asked me what I want, and I said, I want what I have. And that's where I believe that's probably as good as it gets, because, again, there are a lot of people that get things and get places in their life, and then they realize that's not what they want at all. I know lawyers like that, doctors like that. I have good friends that are doctors that say, I hate being a doctor. I hate being a lawyer. I don't want to do it. I thought that's what I wanted, but I didn't. So dream big. Think of the future, put legs behind it with the vision board and the vision, the business plan, all those things, and then go to work to make it a reality. Don't be one of those fantasizing people that just dreams and looks out the windows drooling of their future. Put it in writing, dream it big, and then put legs under it and go make it happen. Thanks for watching the podcast, listening to the podcast, watching and listening both. And we'll see you on the next episode.